On a steamy Vancouver night in 1980, two teens vanished after a rock concert. 11 years later, a hidden plea would ignite a mystery that gripped a nation. It's July 19th, 1980, and the Pacific Coliseum in Vancouver, Canada, is alive with the pulse of a new decade. The air hums with anticipation as the police take the stage, their hit Roxanne blasting through towering speakers. The crowd of 12,000 sways under strobe lights, a sea of feathered hair, denim vests, and platform shoes. Among them are Sarah, Coleman, 17, and Kyle Harper, 18, best friends since they were kids trading comic books on East Vancouver's stoops. Sarah's curly brown hair bounces as she sings along, her thrift store denim vest patched with band logos. Kyle, lanky with a mop of black hair, strums an imaginary guitar, lost in dreams of rock stardom. Sarah and Kyle are East Vancouver kids, raised in a neighborhood of corner stores and chain-link fences. Sarah, a budding photographer, always carried her Polaroid SX70, snapping candids of strangers and sunsets. Her bedroom wall was a collage of grainy prints, a map of her dreams to study art in Toronto. Kyle, a skateboarder with a quick laugh, worked at Vinyl Haven, a record store where he spun Clash records and saved for a Fender Stratocaster. Their friendship was unbreakable. Sarah grounded Kyle's wild streak, while Kyle coaxed Sarah out of her shyness. Their parents, Linda Coleman and Greg Harper, saw them as a package deal, trusting them to keep each other safe. Linda, a night shift nurse, gave Sarah $30 for the concert, tucking a strand of her daughter's hair behind her ear. "Call me when you're leaving the show," she said, her voice soft but firm. Greg, a carpenter with calloused hands, handed Kyle a crumpled $20 bill. "Don't get into any trouble," he grunted, his eyes betraying a flicker of pride. Sarah and Kyle promised to be home by midnight, their excitement contagious. They piled into Kyle's rusty Datsun 510, its engine coughing as they drove to the Coliseum, windows down, the police's "message in a bottle" blaring on the radio. Inside the arena, the night is electric. Witnesses later recall seeing Sarah and Kyle near the front, Sarah snapping a Polaroid of Kyle throwing a peace sign, both grinning under the neon glow. The concert ends at 10:45 p.m., and the crowd surges toward the exits, a chaotic mix of laughter and cigarette smoke. Sarah and Kyle head to the overflow parking lot near the Coliseum's loading dock, a dimly lit stretch of asphalt bordered by a chain-link fence. They're still buzzing, Sarah clutching her camera, Kyle mimicking Sting's vocals. A friend, Tara Lee, sees them by a lamppost, Sarah taking a photo of Kyle posing like a rock star. Tara waves, then loses them in the crowd. That's the last anyone sees of them. By morning, Sarah and Kyle are gone. Their concert tickets are found near a dumpster in the lot, torn and caked in mud. Sarah's Polaroid camera lies nearby, its lens shattered as if dropped in a struggle. Kyle's Datsun sits untouched, a half-empty Coke can in the cup holder, keys dangling in the ignition. No fingerprints, no blood, no signs of a fight. Just an eerie absence that chills the summer air. Linda waits up, her coffee cold by 2 a.m. She paces the kitchen, the rotary phone silent. She calls Greg, who grabs his jacket and drives to the Coliseum, his stomach churning. By dawn, police are on the scene, led by Detective Marie Dubois, a 38-year-old investigator known for her tenacity in missing persons cases. Dubois, with her sharp eyes and notepad, surveys the lot. Volunteers arrive, combing the asphalt for clues. They find Sarah's blue scarf, patterned with white stars, tangled on the fence. Was it dropped or torn off? Dubois bags it, her jaw tight. Dubois interviews concertgoers, but the night was a blur of noise and haze. A janitor, Carl Dempsey, mentions a weird guy near the loading dock, maybe 30, with a scruffy beard and a black cap. "He didn't look like he belonged," Carl says, shrugging. It's a vague lead, but Dubois notes it. She checks Kyle's Datsun, finding no signs of tampering. A security guard, Pete Nolan, recalls a white pickup truck idling near the lot around 11 p.m., but assumed it was a vendor. No one got the plate. Dubois' team searches nearby Stanley Park, fearing Sarah and Kyle wandered off, but the woods yield nothing. The media descends, headlines screaming, "Concert vanishing shocks Vancouver." Dubois explores every angle: runaway teens, drug overdose, abduction. Linda insists Sarah was happy, her bedroom filled with college brochures and photo albums. She'd never leave her camera, Linda says, voice breaking. Greg admits Kyle hung out with a rough crowd at the record store, maybe smoking weed, but swears he'd never run off without his skateboard, left leaning against his bedroom wall. A tipster calls, claiming to have seen a white pickup speeding away from the Coliseum. But the lead fizzles. No description, no proof. Rumors spread like wildfire. Some say Sarah and Kyle overdosed in an alley, their bodies hidden. Others whisper they joined a commune, seduced by the era's free love vibe. A tabloid suggests Kyle owed money to a dealer, a theory Greg dismisses, though he hesitates when asked about Kyle's friends. Dubois suspects Kyle's crowd might hold answers, but no one talks. The case grows cold, buried under a pile of dead ends. Vancouver moves on, but Linda keeps Sarah's scarf on her mantle, a silent promise. Greg drinks too much, haunted by Kyle's untouched guitar. Fast forward to 1991. The Pacific Coliseum, its glory faded, is slated for demolition. A worker, Sam Torres, is ripping out ductwork in a backstage utility room when he notices a loose vent. Behind it, he finds a small tin box, rusted and heavy. Inside is a silver necklace engraved with SC, Sarah's initials, and a note on a torn concert flyer written in smudged ink: "Save us." Sam's hands tremble as he dials 911. The discovery hits the news, and the case roars back to life. Marie Dubois, now 49 and semi-retired, takes the call. She drives to the Coliseum, her pulse quickening. The necklace is Sarah's, a gift from her dad for her 15th birthday. Linda confirms it, tears streaming as she holds it. The note smells faintly of motor oil, a clue that puzzles forensics. The utility room, a break area for stagehands in 1980, was rarely locked, a perfect hiding spot. A partial fingerprint on the flyer yields no match in 1991's limited databases. Greg Harper, Kyle's dad, stares at the note, his face grim. "It's a sick joke," he mutters, but his eyes betray doubt. Dubois digs into the stagehands from 1980, focusing on Vince Malone, a 32-year-old drifter with a record for assault and theft. Vince was fired weeks after the concert for drinking on shift. He left Vancouver soon after, his whereabouts unknown. Carl's weird guy description, bearded, black cap, fits Vince, who had a snake tattoo on his forearm. Could he have hidden the necklace, or did Sarah leave it as a desperate plea? Dubois' gut says Vince is key, but he's a ghost. A 1991 tip adds fuel. A gas station clerk in Chilliwack, 60 miles from Vancouver, claims to have seen a woman resembling Sarah, brown curls and a blue scarf, buying cigarettes. She seemed scared, glancing over her shoulder, and left in a rusty car. Dubois sends sketches, but no new sightings emerge. Is Sarah alive, or is the necklace her final cry? As part one ends, the note's words, "Save us," hang in the air, a mystery that refuses to rest. The Pacific Coliseum, once a beacon of Vancouver's music scene, feels like a crypt in 1991. Its faded banners and peeling paint hide secrets, buried for over a decade. The discovery of Sarah Coleman's necklace in a backstage utility room has ripped open a wound that never healed. The silver chain, engraved with SC, and the note, "Save us," scrawled on a torn concert flyer, have brought Detective Marie Dubois back to a case that haunts her dreams. The words echo in her mind: who needed saving, and from what? Sarah and Kyle, or someone else lost in the shadows of that 1980 night? Dubois stands in the utility room, its flickering fluorescent lights casting jagged shadows. The tin box that held the necklace was tucked behind a vent, a spot only someone familiar with the Coliseum's nooks would know. The room, a cluttered, break area for stagehands in 1980, smells of dust and stale coffee. Dubois runs her fingers along the vent, wondering, did Sarah hide the necklace herself, a desperate cry for help, or did someone else place it there, taunting the world? The E note's faint motor oil scent lingers, a clue that feels just out of reach. She dives into the 1980 case files, stacked in a police basement, their edges curling like old memories. Witness statements from that July night are maddeningly vague. Too many concert-goers, too much chaos. Dubois re-interviews Carl Dempsey, the janitor who saw a weird guy near the loading dock. Carl, now 60 and living in a cramped apartment, squints at her through cigarette smoke. His memory is foggy, but he adds a detail that prickles Dubois' skin. The man had a tattoo, maybe a snake, on his forearm, visible when he rolled up his sleeve. Didn't think much of it then, Carl mumbles, ashamed. Dubois presses, asking about the man's build. Stocky, maybe 6 feet, Carl says. Wore a black cap, like he didn't want to be seen. Dubois cross-checks the Coliseum's 1980 employee records, zeroing in on Vince Malone, a stagehand with a rap sheet for assault and theft. Vince, 32 at the time, matches Carl's description, bearded, 6 feet, and known for a snake tattoo from his bar fighting days. He was fired weeks after the concert for showing up drunk, then vanished from Vancouver. His last known address, a flophouse near Chinatown, is long gone, replaced by a strip mall. Dubois tracks down a former co-worker, Tony Vega, a wiry ex-stagehand, now working as a mechanic. Tony's nervous, avoiding eye contact. Vince was off, he says. Always staring at the kids in the crowd, especially girls. Creeped me out. Tony recalls Vince driving a white pickup truck, often parked at the loading dock after shows. Loading crates, he claimed, were gear. The necklace's motor oil trace gnaws at Dubois. Forensics confirm it's a common type, used in auto shops or garages. The Coliseum's maintenance logs show stagehands like Vince had access to a service garage near the dock, where trucks and equipment were repaired. Dubois visits the site, now a construction zone for a new arena. The garage is a crumbling shed, its floor stained with oil, tools rusted in corners. She finds no evidence, but the smell, sharp, chemical, matches the note. Was this where the note was written, under duress? Linda Coleman, Sarah's mother, sits across from Dubois at the police station, her hands trembling as she holds Sarah's necklace. Linda's face is etched with 11 years of grief, her once vibrant eyes dull. She believes the necklace is proof. Sarah's alive, fighting to be found. She was strong, Linda says, voice cracking. She loved taking pictures, capturing moments. She wouldn't give up. Linda shares a new memory. Sarah was jittery before the concert, mentioning a pushy guy who hung around Vinyl Haven, the record store where Kyle worked. Linda thought it was a harmless flirtation, but now wonders if it was Vince, circling her daughter like a predator. Dubois notes it, her mind racing. Greg Harper, Kyle's father, is less hopeful. He slumps in a chair, his carpenter's hands scarred and restless. Greg thinks the necklace is a cruel hoax, maybe kids scavenging the Coliseum. Kyle was no angel, he admits, voice low. Hung out with some bad types, maybe owed money. Dubois presses, and Greg reveals a secret he buried in 1980. Kyle borrowed $200 from a dealer named Joey Russo, a name whispered in East Vancouver's dive bars. Greg begged Kyle to steer clear, but Kyle shrugged it off, saying it was just a loan. Dubois' radar pings. Could Kyle's debt have pulled them into danger? A new witness steps forward, drawn by the 1991 headlines. Jenna Walsh, a 1980 concert-goer now teaching high school, contacts Dubois. Jenna's voice shakes as she recounts seeing Sarah and Kyle in the parking lot, near the loading dock. They were talking to a bearded man, maybe 30, who seemed angry. He grabbed Kyle's arm, Jenna says, guilt flooding her words. Sarah looks scared, but I thought it was just a fight. I walked away. Dubois shows Jenna a photo lineup, including Vince's 1979 mugshot. Jenna hesitates, then points to Vince. It was him. I remember the tattoo. Her certainty tightens Dubois' focus on Vince, but he's still a ghost. The gas station sighting from 1991 gains traction. Ed Murray, the Chilliwack clerk, swears. He saw a woman in her late 20s, brown curls and a blue scarf, buying Marlboros. She was jumpy, kept looking outside, Ed tells Dubois. Said something like, "I can't go back." Ed didn't get the car's plate, but he noticed a man in the passenger seat, older, maybe 40. Dubois sends age-progressed sketches of Sarah to nearby towns, but no hits. A homeless man, Ray, who frequents Chilliwack streets, claims he saw her too, calling her Star for her scarf's pattern. Ray's a drinker, his story's muddled, but he mutters about Star fearing the bearded man. Dubois wonders, could Sarah have escaped a captor only to drift into hiding? Another clue surfaces. A 1980 police report about a theft at the Coliseum, filed days after the concert. Someone stole amplifiers from the utility room where the necklace was found. Vince was questioned, his fingerprints on a toolbox, but no, charges stuck. Dubois suspects he used the room as a hideout, maybe for more than stolen gear. She re-interviews Tony Vega, who shifts uncomfortably under her gaze. Tony admits Vince ran side gigs, possibly selling weed to teens. He had a way with kids, Tony says, grimacing. Got them to trust him. Tony once saw Vince with a brown-haired girl near the dock, maybe 17, but kept quiet, fearing Vince's temper. Dubois' theory takes shape. Vince targeted Sarah and Kyle, possibly over Kyle's debt to Joey Russo. The pickup truck, seen by security guard Pete Nolan, could be the key. She checks 1980 vehicle records, but white pickups were common, and most are long scrapped. A faint lead emerges, a 1981 impound report for a white Ford pickup, towed near the Coliseum, registered to a Vincent Malone. The truck was crushed, but its last location was a garage tied to Russo's crew. Dubois' pulse quickens. Did Vince use it to take Sarah and Kyle? As the investigation deepens, Linda and Greg cling to fading hope. Linda visits the Coliseum, standing where Sarah vanished, the necklace cold in her palm. Greg buries himself in work, but every Datsun he sees twists the knife. Dubois feels the weight of their pain, vowing to find Vince. But the trail is cold, and the note's plea, "Save us," feels like a taunt from the past. The pawnshop receipt for Sarah Coleman's Polaroid camera, sold in 1981 by a bearded man with a snake tattoo, sits like a live wire on Detective Marie Dubois' desk. It's 1991, and the Pacific Coliseum looms in her mind, a concrete maze hiding the truth about Sarah and Kyle Harper's 1980 disappearance. The camera, engraved with SC, was Sarah's prized possession, a tool for capturing her dreams. Why did Vince Malone, the stagehand with a criminal past, pawn it? Was it a careless slip, a desperate need for cash, or something darker, a Shire trophy from a night he can't erase? Dubois feels the weight of the case, its threads tangling like the Coliseum's backstage cables. She stands in the Gastown pawnshop, now a cluttered relic of Vancouver's grittier days. The owner, Sal Perez, a chain-smoking man with a ledger fetish, dug up the 1981 receipt after the news of Sarah's necklace broke. Sal squints at Dubois, recalling the seller. Guy was antsy, he says, exhaling smoke. Beard, maybe 30, had a tattoo on his arm, snake or some kind of reptile. Acted like he didn't want to be remembered. Sal notes the man pawned the camera for $200, a hefty sum, and left quickly, glancing at a white pickup parked outside. Dubois' pulse quickens. The pickup matches security guard Pete Nolan's sighting from the concert lot, and Tony Vega's memory of Vince's vehicle. But the truck's gone, likely crushed years ago, its secrets locked in a scrapyard. Dubois dives deeper into Vince Malone's past, chasing a shadow through 1980s Vancouver. Vince was a drifter, bouncing between odd jobs and bar stools. His rap sheet paints a troubling picture: arrests for bar fights, petty theft, and a 1978 assault charge dropped when the victim, a young woman, recanted. Dubois tracks down the woman, Susan Klein, now living in a Calgary suburb. Susan, 35, speaks haltingly over the phone, her voice tight. She met Vince at a 1977 concert where he worked security. "He was charming at first," she says, "but got obsessive. Followed me to shows, left notes on my car." Susan saw him in Vancouver in 1980, near the Coliseum, and moved to Calgary to escape his stare. "He had this look," she adds, "like he owned you." Dubois scribbles, "Was Vince fixated on Sarah too?" Linda Coleman, Sarah's mother, visits the station, clutching a photo of Sarah at 16, her brown curls framing a shy smile. Linda's convinced the pawned camera means Sarah's alive, fighting to come home. "She loved that camera," Linda says, her voice a whisper. "It was her eyes on the world." Linda shares another detail, sparked by the news. Sarah mentioned a weird guy at Vinyl Haven, Kyle's record store job, who kept asking about her photos. "I thought it was a fan," Linda says, tears welling. "What if it was him?" Dubois nods, picturing Vince loitering among the vinyl stacks, his snake tattoo peeking from his sleeve. Greg Harper, Kyle's father, slumps beside Linda, his carpenter's hands fidgeting. Greg's skeptical about the camera lead. "Sounds like a thief cashing in," he grumbles, but his eyes betray fear. Dubois presses him about Kyle's debt to Joey Russo, the dealer Greg mentioned in Part 2. Greg hesitates, then admits Kyle borrowed $200 to buy weed, planning to resell it for concert cash. "I told him to stop," Greg says, voice breaking. "He said it was one time." Dubois' mind races. Could Kyle's deal with Russo have crossed paths with Vince, pulling Sarah into a deadly web? Dubois investigates Joey Russo, a small-time crook in 1980, now running a chop shop in Burnaby. She visits his garage, a cavern of grease and steel, where Russo leans against a gutted Chevy, smirking. "Never heard of Kyle Harper," he says, lighting a cigarette. But when Dubois mentions Vince Malone, Russo's smirk falters. "Vince was a nobody," he says too quickly. "Did odd jobs," ran his mouth. Russo claims no knowledge of the Coliseum night, but Dubois senses he's hiding something. She digs into Russo's 1980 crew, learning Vince was a runner, delivering packages, possibly drugs, for Russo's network. Was the Coliseum a drop point? A new witness emerges, drawn by the 1991 media frenzy. Mike Larson, a security guard at the 1980 concert, now in hospice care, calls Dubois. Mike's voice is frail, but his guilt is raw. "I saw them," he says, coughing. "The kids near the loading dock. A guy was with them, bearded, tattoo on his arm. He was mad, yelling at the boy." Mike thought it was a drug deal and turned away, ashamed of his inaction. He saw the man shove the girl, maybe Sarah, toward a white pickup. "I should have done something," Mike whispers. Dubois shows him Vince's mugshot. Mike nods weakly. That's him. The tattoo, the truck, the anger. It all points to Vince. The Chilliwack gas station sighting from 1991 stalls. Ed Murray. The clerk sticks to his story. A woman with Sarah's curls and blue scarf, nervous, muttering, "I can't go back." But no new leads surface. Ray, the homeless man who called her Star, adds little. His ramblings, shared with a shelter worker, mention Star fearing the bearded man and the place by the water. Dubois wonders, could Sarah have been held near water, maybe a river or inlet? She checks maps, noting the Burrard Inlet near the Coliseum, where Russo's crew operated a warehouse in 1980. Dubois explores the motor oil trace on the Save Us note. Forensics suggest it's from a garage or auto shop, tying it to the Coliseum's service garage or Russo's warehouse. She visits the warehouse, a decaying hulk by the Inlet, its concrete floor slick with old oil. Locals call it Russo's Den, a hub for stolen cars in the 80s. A retired worker, Al Costa, says Vince was a regular, driving a white pickup, loading crates at night. Shady stuff, Al mutters. I stayed out of it. Al recalls hearing a commotion in 1980, shouts, maybe a scream, but saw nothing. Dubois' gut twists. Was it Sarah or Kyle? Another clue surfaces. A 1981 police report about a break-in at Russo's warehouse. Stolen items included car parts and a box of Polaroids, never recovered. Dubois suspects Vince was involved, maybe hiding evidence of the concert night. She re-interviews Tony Vega, the ex-stagehand, who cracks under her stare. Tony admits he saw Vince arguing with a teen boy in the Coliseum garage, maybe Kyle, days before the concert. Vince said, "You saw too much," Tony recalls, sweating. Tony heard a scuffle, then fled, fearing Russo's wrath. He never saw the boy again. Dubois' theory sharpens. Kyle's debt to Russo drew him into Vince's orbit. Sarah, caught in the crossfire, became a target. The pickup truck, seen by Mike and Al, could have carried them to the warehouse. But what happened next? The necklace suggests Sarah was alive long enough to leave a plea, but where? Dubois combs the warehouse, finding only rusted bolts and graffiti. The Inlet's dark waters mock her, hiding answers. Linda and Greg cling to fading hope. Linda visits Sarah's old darkroom, her daughter's undeveloped film still in canisters, a frozen dream. Greg works late, avoiding Kyle's bedroom, where a skateboard gathers dust. Dubois feels their pain, a clock ticking in her chest. She vows to find Vince, but he's a phantom slipping through time. The rusted keychain with a police logo, unearthed at the Burrard Inlet warehouse, lies on Detective Marie Dubois' desk like a relic from a forgotten world. It's 1991, and the Pacific Coliseum case, Sarah Coleman and Kyle Harper's 1980 disappearance, feels like a puzzle with half its pieces missing. The keychain, identical to one Kyle bought at the concert, has a broken chain, as if ripped off in a struggle. Linda Coleman, Sarah's mother, confirmed it's Kyle's, her hands trembling as she held it, whispering, "He was there." The Burrard Inlet, its dark waters lapping coldly, taunts Dubois. Was this warehouse the end for Kyle, or a stop on a darker journey? The note found with Sarah's necklace, "Save us," burns in her mind, a plea that demands answers. Dubois stands at the warehouse, a decaying husk by the Inlet, its concrete walls scarred with graffiti. In 1980, it was Joey Russo's domain, a front for a chop shop stripping stolen cars and, if rumors held, hiding drugs in engine blocks. The keychain's discovery suggests Sarah and Kyle were here, but why? Dubois' theory hardens. Kyle's $200 debt to Russo, a dealer Greg Harper revealed, pulled them into a dangerous orbit. Vince Malone, the stagehand with a snake tattoo and a criminal record, was Russo's runner, possibly the bearded man seen arguing with the teens in the Coliseum lot. Did Vince bring them here, to this oil-soaked prison? She dives into the warehouse's history, poring over 1980s police reports. A 1982 raid shut it down, netting car parts but no arrests. Retired cop Dan Foley, who led the raid, meets Dubois at a diner, his hands shaking from age. Russo's place was a snake pit, Dan says, sipping black coffee. Vince Malone was always there, driving a white pickup, hauling crates at odd hours. Dan recalls hearing a muffled scream during a 1980 stakeout, but a search found nothing, just oil drums and rusted tools. Thought it was my imagination, he admits, eyes distant. Dubois' gut twists. Was it Sarah, trapped in some hidden corner? Linda organizes a vigil at the Coliseum, marking 11 years since Sarah and Kyle vanished. Hundreds gather, their candles flickering in the November chill. Linda speaks, her voice breaking. They're out there waiting for us. A woman approaches, Ellen Hayes, claiming to have known Kyle from Vinyl Haven, the record store. Ellen, mid-40s with nervous eyes, tells Linda that Kyle was scared before the concert, mentioning a deal gone bad with a man who knew too much. Linda relays this to Dubois, who senses a lead. Was Ellen referring to Russo, or Vince, or someone else? Dubois tracks Ellen to a rundown motel in East Vancouver. Ellen's story frays under questioning. She claims she was a regular at the Dieu Tsai store, but her details are vague. Wrong band names, wrong store layout. I just wanted to help, Ellen stammers, avoiding Dubois' gaze. Dubois runs her name, finding no record before 1985, as if Ellen appeared from nowhere. Is she a concerned citizen, a liar, or worse, a plant hiding her own secrets? Dubois lets her go but tails her, noting Ellen's frequent calls from a payphone. To whom? A new clue emerges. A 1991 pawn shop in Burnaby sold a blue scarf with white stars, identical to Sarah's, pawned by a man matching Vince's description. The shop owner, Sal Perez, the same man who reported the Polaroid camera sale, recognizes Vince's snake tattoo from a 1981 visit. He was spooked, Sal says, muttering about cleaning up old messes. Sal saw a woman in the man's pickup, maybe 30, blonde, staying low. Dubois' heart races. Could it be Sarah, alive but under Vince's control? She checks pawn records, finding no other items tied to the case, but Sal's words linger. He looked like a man running from something. Dubois revisits Jenna Walsh, the concert-goer who saw Vince with Sarah and Kyle in the lot. Jenna, now a teacher, agrees to a hypnosis session to sharpen her memory. Under trance, Jenna recalls more. Vince said, "You're coming with me," his voice sharp. Sarah pulled away, but Vince grabbed her arm, his tattoo glinting under a streetlight. Kyle shouted, "Let her go!" Before Jenna turned away, heart pounding. Jenna wakes sobbing, guilt flooding her. "I should have screamed," she says. Dubois reassures her, but the tattoo and pickup solidify Vince as the predator. The motor oil trace on the Save Us note points back to the warehouse. Dubois orders a forensic sweep, focusing on hidden compartments. Technicians find a brown hair strand in a crack, possibly Sarah's, but 1991 DNA tech can't confirm it. The hair's presence suggests Sarah was here, alive long enough to shed it. Dubois imagines her, terrified, scribbling the note in a stolen moment. But where was Kyle? The keychain's broken chain hints at a fight, but no blood or other traces surface. A breakthrough comes via Ray, the homeless man from Chilliwack who called the gas station woman Star. Ray died in 1991, but his belongings donated to police include a tattered notebook. Dubois flips through it, finding rambles about Star and the bearded man. A crude sketch shows a man with a snake tattoo, his eyes cold. Ray wrote, "Star said the warehouse was hell, water all around." Dubois studies maps, noting the Burrard Inlet surrounds the warehouse like a moat. Was Sarah held here? The Inlet? Swallowing her cries. Another lead. A 1981 break-in at the warehouse, reported by Russo's crew. Stolen items included a box of Polaroids, car parts, and tools. Dubois suspects Vince was the thief, hiding evidence of the concert night. She re-interviews Tony Vega, the ex-stagehand, who's now a nervous wreck. Tony confesses he saw Vince drag a girl into his pickup in 1980, maybe Sarah, near the Coliseum garage. "She was kicking," Tony whispers, eyes darting. "Kyle was there, yelling, then it went quiet." Tony fled, fearing Russo's retaliation. He never saw them again. Dubois' theory evolves. Kyle's debt to Russo drew him into a deal at the Coliseum, witnessed by Sarah. Vince, acting on Russo's orders or his own obsession, abducted them, using the pickup to transport them to the warehouse. The necklace and keychain suggest they were held, but for how long? The pawned camera and scarf hint Vince kept trophies, or sold them to erase his tracks. But the woman in the pickup in 1991, could Sarah have survived, trapped in a new nightmare? Linda and Greg grapple with the keychain's discovery. Linda visits the inlet, staring at the water, clutching Sarah's necklace. "I feel her," she says, voice trembling. Greg, holed up in his workshop, sands a table, avoiding Kyle's skateboard in the corner. Dubois feels their despair, clock ticking louder each day. She vows to find Vince, but he's a specter, slipping through her grasp. The tip from Portland PD is a spark in the dark. Vince Malone, the stagehand with a snake tattoo, is alive, hiding in a homeless camp under an alias. Detective Marie Dubois grips the phone, her heart racing. It's 1991, and the Pacific Coliseum case, Sarah Coleman and Kyle Harper's 1980 disappearance after a police concert, has clawed its way back into Vancouver's conscience. The necklace with Sarah's initials, the Save Us note, the pawned Polaroid camera, the police keychain, all point to Vince, a ghost who's haunted Dubois for years. Now she has a chance to face him. Will he confess or bury the truth deeper? The Burrard Inlet warehouse, where the keychain was found, looms in her mind, its oil-stained floors hiding secrets of that fateful night. Dubois boards a red-eye flight to Portland, the case file heavy in her carry-on. She lands at dawn, driving to a sprawling camp under a freeway overpass, where tents and tarps form a makeshift village. Portland PD escorts her to a gaunt man in a tattered jacket, his beard streaked with gray. It's Vince, 43 now, his snake tattoo faded but unmistakable. His eyes, cold and wary, meet hers. "I ain't done nothing," he mutters, before she even speaks. Dubois feels a chill. His voice carries the weight of 11 years of running. In a cramped interrogation room, Dubois lays out the evidence. Sarah's necklace, found in the Coliseum's utility room with the note "Save Us." The Polaroid camera pawned in 1981, engraved with SC. The police keychain from the warehouse. Witness accounts from Jenna Walsh and Mike Larson, who saw Vince with the teens, and Tony Vega's claim that Vince dragged a girl into his white A pickup. Vince slouches, picking at his nails, his smirk forced. "You got a lot of stories," he says, "but no proof." Dubois shows him the keychain, its broken chain glinting under the light. Vince's smirk falters, his fingers twitching. She presses, asking about Joey Russo, the dealer Kyle owed $200 to. Vince's eyes dart to the door. "Russo's bad news," he says, voice low. "I just did what he told me." Dubois leans in, sensing a crack. "What did you do, Vince? What happened to Sarah and Kyle?" He laughs, a hollow sound, but his hands tremble. "Kids come and go at concerts. I don't keep track." Dubois pulls out Jenna's statement, describing his tattoo in the pickup. "Jenna saw you grab Sarah," she says. "Mike saw you shove her toward your truck." Vince's jaw tightens, but he stays silent. Dubois shifts tactics, mentioning the warehouse by the Burrard Inlet, where the keychain was found. "We know you worked for Russo there," she says. "Motor oil on the note matches the warehouse." Floor. "Sarah was there, wasn't she?" Vince's smirk vanishes, replaced by a flicker of fear. "I drove trucks," he says, voice flat. "Delivered crates, that's it." Dubois presses, "Crates or kids?" Vince slams his fist on the table, startling the room. "I didn't touch those kids," he shouts, then catches himself, sinking back. Linda Coleman and Greg Harper, back in Vancouver, are briefed on Vince's sighting. Linda clutches Sarah's necklace, hope flickering in her tired eyes. "If he's alive, he knows where she is," she says, voice trembling. Greg, his face etched with years of guilt, is less certain. "He's a liar," Greg mutters. "Probably. Sold Kyle's keychain for beer." Greg reveals another detail. Kyle mentioned a creepy guy at the record store, possibly Vince, who offered him free concert tickets. "I thought it was a scam," Greg says, rubbing his temples. Dubois notes it. Vince may have lured Kyle with promises, ensnaring Sarah by association. Dubois digs into Rousseau's operation, suspecting the warehouse was more than a chop shop. A 1980 informant's report, buried in the archives, links Rousseau to a trafficking ring, moving drugs and possibly people through Vancouver's ports. Vince was a low-level runner, trusted to stay quiet. Dubois interviews Al Costa, the retired warehouse worker from Part 3, again. Al, now frail, admits he saw Vince with a young girl in 1980. Brown hair, maybe Sarah, near the warehouse loading bay. She looked scared, Al says, eyes downcast. Vince said she was his cousin. I didn't buy it, but Rousseau's guys didn't ask questions. Al heard a muffled cry later, but found no one. I should have looked harder, he whispers. A new clue surfaces. A 1991 hospital record from a Seattle clinic 100 miles from Portland lists a Jane Doe, mid-20s, admitted for dehydration and bruises. She had brown curls, a blue scarf with white stars, and left before giving a name. The nurse noted her, muttering, "He's still out there." Dubois' heart skips. Could it be Sarah, escaped but broken? She shows the record to Vince, watching his reaction. His eyes widen, then narrow. Lots of girls wear scarves, he says, but his voice cracks. Dubois pushes. Was she in your pickup in 91, Vince? The woman Sal Perez saw at the pawn shop? Vince shakes his head, too quickly. Dubois explores the Chilliwack gas station sighting from 1991, where Ed Murray saw a woman like Sarah called Star by homeless man Ray. Ray's notebook, donated after his death, offers more. Star said the water place was where it happened. Dubois connects it to the Burrard Inlet warehouse, surrounded by water. She organizes a deeper search, divers scouring the inlet's shallows. They find a rusted padlock, engraved with SC, buried in the silt. Linda confirms it's Sarah's, from her camera bag, left at the Coliseum. Its presence in the inlet suggests Sarah was at the warehouse, but alive or dead. Dubois returns to Vince, armed with the padlock. This was Sarah's, she says, slamming it on the table. Found where you worked for Rousseau. Start talking. Vince's bravado crumbles, his face ashen. He admits driving for Rousseau, running special deliveries in his white pickup. Sometimes it was girls, he says, voice barely audible. Rousseau had clients. Dubois' stomach churns. Was Sarah one of them? Vince hesitates, then nods. She and the boy saw something. They shouldn't have, he says. A deal at the Coliseum. Rousseau told me to handle it. Vince claims he took Sarah and Kyle to the warehouse, locking them in a storage room. The girl fought, he says, rubbing his arm as if remembering scratches. Kept screaming for the boy. Vince says Rousseau's men took over, and he never saw them again. I didn't kill nobody, he insists, eyes pleading. Dubois doubts him. His story's too neat, dodging blame. She asks about the necklace and note. Vince shrugs. Maybe she left it hoping someone would find her. But his eyes avoid the padlock, a telltale sign. Dubois probes further, asking about a cabin Rousseau owned near the inlet, mentioned in a 1980 property record. Vince flinches, then denies knowing it. Check with Rousseau, he snarls, shutting down. Dubois gets a warrant for the cabin, a derelict shack hidden in the woods. Inside, she finds a basement with concrete walls, eerily like a prison. Scratches mark the door, as if someone clawed to escape. A forensic sweep finds a torn piece of denim, possibly from Sarah's vest, but no DNA in 1991 tech. Dubois' heart sinks. Sarah was here, but for how long? Linda and Greg hear Vince's story, their faces a mix of rage and hope. Linda clings to the Jane Doe record, believing Sarah escaped. She's out there, she says, clutching the padlock. Greg, broken, thinks Vince is lying to save himself. Kyle's gone, he says, voice hollow. Dubois vows to press Vince harder, but he's slipping away, his health failing. The words, "I'm free now," scribbled on a diner napkin by a woman called Sally at a Seattle shelter, burn like a flare in the fog of Detective Marie Dubois' mind. It's 1991, and the Pacific Coliseum case, the 1980 disappearance of Sarah Coleman and Kyle Harper after a police concert, has become a labyrinth of clues, each one a jagged piece of a shattered truth. Sarah's necklace with the "Save Us" note, her pawned Polaroid camera, Kyle's police keychain, the padlock from the Burrard Inlet, and Vince Malone's chilling confession that he locked the teens in a warehouse for Joey Russo's Trafficking. Ring, all weigh on Dubois like a chain around her heart. Is Sally Sarah, a survivor carrying 11 years of scars, or a cruel echo of hope? The Burrard Inlet's dark waves whisper secrets, urging her to unravel the mystery before it slips away again. Dubois steps into the Seattle shelter, a gray building where rain hammers the roof like a restless drum. Clara Evans, a shelter worker, with kind eyes and a soft voice, recalls Sally with startling clarity. She came in June '91, Clara says, opening a worn logbook. Brown curls, green eyes, thin as a ghost, wore a blue scarf with white stars, clutched it like a lifeline. Sally carried a battered Polaroid camera, its strap frayed from years of use, and stayed one night, leaving a note in the donation box. I'm free now. Clara chased her into the rain-soaked alley, but Sally vanished, a shadow swallowed by the night. Dubois holds the note, scrawled on a diner napkin, its ink trembling as if written in fear. The handwriting mirrors the "Save Us" note, and a faint motor oil smudge clings to the paper, tying it to the Burrard Inlet warehouse. Clara adds a haunting detail. She flinched at every sound, muttering about a snake man who'd never stop hunting her. Dubois' pulse races. Vince Malone, with his snake tattoo, is the phantom in Sally's nightmares. The napkin's oil smudge sparks a lead. Dubois spots a faded logo on it, from the Rusty Anchor, a diner near the Burrard Inlet, a gritty hangout for Russo's crew in 1980. She drives to the diner, now a dive bar with flickering neon and a jukebox stuck on Springsteen. The bartender, Lou Carter, a weathered man with a cigarette dangling from his lips, studies Sally's age-progressed sketch. Saw a girl like that. 91 maybe, he says, leaning on the counter. Scarf, jumpy, kept her head low. Paid for coffee with a concert ticket. Weirdest thing. Lou pulls a crumpled police ticket stub, dated July 19th, 1980, from a drawer of lost trinkets. It's torn, like the "Save Us" flyer, and carries a faint oil scent. Dubois' hands shake. Did Sarah hold this ticket for a decade, a relic of her last free night? Lou adds, she sat by the window, staring at the road like she expected someone to burst in. Dubois sends Sally's sketch to Seattle shelters and diners, but the trail stays cold. She heads to Portland, where Vince Malone slumps in a holding cell, his cough a rattling omen, his snake tattoo faded but menacing. She slams the napkin and ticket stub on the table. "Who's Sally, Vince?" she demands, her voice a blade. Vince's smirk wavers, his fingers brushing the tattoo. "Some runaway," he mutters, eyes avoiding the stub. Dubois leans in. "Sarah's alive, isn't she? Scared of you?" Vince's laugh is a rasp, but his hands clench. "You're chasing shadows, cop." His gaze lingers on the ticket, a telltale crack. Dubois walks out, certain he knows Sally's secret. Back in Vancouver, Linda Coleman and Greg Harper hear about the Seattle sighting. Linda, gripping Sarah's padlock, weeps with fragile hope. "That's my Sarah," she says, her voice a prayer. Greg, his face hollow from years of guilt, scoffs. "Another lie," he mutters, lighting a cigarette with trembling hands. Linda recalls Sarah's diary, hidden in her darkroom. Dubois searches the Coleman house, finding it under a loose floorboard. The diary's pages brim with Sarah's dreams of photography, but the last entry, dated July 12, 1980, chills her. "Kyle's in trouble. A guy at the store keeps watching me. Snake on his arm. Creepy smile. I'm scared." Dubois envisions Vince at Vinyl Haven, his obsession growing like a stain. The Burrard Inlet cabin, where a knife with SC and a denim scrap were found, draws Dubois back. The basement's faint bloodstain hints at a struggle. She interviews Ed Walsh, a former Russo associate who rented the cabin in 1980. Ed, now 60, says Russo used it for private deals, with Vince's white pickup always parked outside. Heard screams once, Ed admits, eyes downcast. Thought it was a party. Dubois orders a deeper search, unearthing a buried tin can in the yard containing a silver earring, like one Sarah wore. Linda confirms it's hers, her hope fraying like the earring's tarnished chain. Tara Lee, the concert witness who saw a white pickup in the Coliseum lot, adds a layer. She recalls its dented fender and a man loading a heavy tarp. Dubois confirms Vince's 1981 impounded truck had a matching dent. Were Sarah and Kyle under that tarp, bound for the cabin? Tony Vega, the stagehand who saw Vince hit Kyle, breaks. Further. Vince took them to the cabin first, he whispers in a deserted park, eyes darting. Heard him tell Russo, the girl's fighting. Russo said, fix it. Tony fled, fearing Russo's wrath. The Chilliwack gas station sighting, where Starr, paid with a 1980 police ticket stub, ties to the Rusty Anchor's stub. Dubois wonders if Sarah drifted between these places, evading Vince or another captor. The man with Starr remains a mystery, his shadow looming. Another clue, a 1981 police report about a disturbance at Russo's cabin. Neighbors heard screams, but police found only empty beer cans. The report mentions a white pickup parked nearby, matching Vince's. Dubois suspects the cabin was a holding place before the warehouse. She interviews a neighbor, Grace Miller, now 70. Grace recalls seeing a young girl at the cabin in 1980, brown hair, standing by the pickup at night. She looked lost, Grace says, voice trembling. I should have called someone. Grace saw Vince arguing with another man, maybe Russo, who said, clean it up. Dubois' heart pounds. What needed cleaning? Sarah and Kyle, or their traces? Grace's story sparks a breakthrough. Dubois digs into the second man, finding Frankie Torres, a Russo enforcer arrested in 1980 near the Inlet for assault. She tracks him to a trailer park outside Vancouver, where he's a scarred, grizzled man of 55. Frankie denies knowing Vince, but a 1980 photo in his trailer shows a white pickup with a dented fender, dated the summer Sarah and Kyle vanished. Old junk, Frankie snarls, slamming the door. Dubois' gut screams he's tied to the cleanup. She tails him, noting his late-night drives to the Inlet, where he tosses a bag into the water. Divers later recover it, a soggy bundle of Polaroids, one showing a girl with brown curls tied up, her eyes wide with terror. The background is concrete, like the cabin's basement. Dubois confronts Frankie at his trailer, showing the Polaroid. Who's this, Frankie? She demands. His scar twitches, but he stays silent. You were at the cabin with Vince, she says. What did Russo want cleaned? Frankie's eyes dart, then he mutters. Talk to Vince. I just followed orders. Dubois leaves, her mind racing. Frankie's fear points to a deeper truth. Linda visits the cabin, tracing the basement. Scratches the earring cold in her palm. She fought, she whispers, hope and pain entwined. Greg, lost in his workshop, avoids the news. Kyle's skateboard a silent ghost. Dubois feels their anguish, a fire driving her. She plans to press Vince and Frankie, racing against Vince's failing health. The single word, help, scrawled on a napkin left by a woman at the Rusty Anchor diner, sends a jolt through Detective Marie Dubois' veins. It's 1991, and the Pacific Coliseum case, the 1980 vanishing of Sarah Coleman and Kyle Harper after a police concert, is a fire that refuses to die. The clues, Sarah's necklace with the Save Us note, her pawned Polaroid camera, Kyle's police keychain, the padlock, the earring, and the Polaroid of a tied-up girl, point to a dark truth buried in Vancouver's underbelly. Vince Malone's confession that he locked the teens in a warehouse for Joey Russo's trafficking ring, and the sighting of Frankie Torres watching the woman at the diner tightened the noose. Is this woman Sarah, alive and crying for rescue, or another victim of Russo's empire? The Burrard Inlet's waves growl, daring Dubois to plunge deeper. Dubois stands in the rusty anchor, its air thick with grease and cigarette smoke. The barmaid, Jenny Holt, a wiry woman with dyed red hair, repeats her story. She came in late, maybe August '91, Jenny says, wiping a glass. Brown curls, blue scarf with stars, clutching a Polaroid camera. Looked like she hadn't slept in years. The woman scribbled help on a napkin, left it under her coffee mug, and bolted when a man, Frankie Torres, with his scarred face, stared from a corner booth. Jenny kept the napkin, sensing its weight. Dubois examines it, its ink frantic, with a faint motor oil smudge, like the Save Us note. Her heart pounds. Sarah's fingerprints are all over this, but why return to Vancouver, Russo's turf? Dubois tails Frankie Torres to his trailer park, a desolate sprawl outside Vancouver. His trailer, a rusted hulk, reeks of whiskey and secrets. She confronts him, showing the help napkin and the Polaroid of the tied-up girl from the Inlet. Bag. Who's she, Frankie? Dubois demands, her voice steel. Frankie's scar twitches, his eyes cold. Don't know her, he growls, but his hands fidget with a lighter. You were at the rusty anchor watching her, Dubois presses. What did Russo want cleaned up at the cabin? Frankie's lighter drops, clattering on the floor. Ask. Vince, he mutters, slamming the door. Dubois notices a map on his table, circled around a remote Inlet cabin. Not Russo's, but another hideout. Is this where Sarah was taken? She digs into Frankie's past, finding a 1980 arrest for assault, tied to Russo's crew. A retired cop, Dan Foley, recalls Frankie as Russo's fixer, cleaning up messes, stolen cars, loose ends, or people. He was at the warehouse a lot, Dan says over coffee, his voice grim. Always with Vince, hauling crates at night. Dan heard rumors of a second cabin, a safe house for Russo's trafficking deals, hidden in the woods. Dubois cross-checks property records, finding a derelict cabin owned by a Russo alias 20 miles from the Inlet. Her gut twists. Another prison for Sarah and Kyle. Linda Coleman and Greg Harper hear about the help napkin. Linda, clutching Sarah's earring, believes Sarah's reaching out. She's here, she says, tears streaming. Greg, his carpenter's hands scarred, shakes his head. It's a trick, he mutters, but his voice cracks. Linda shares a new memory. Sarah once sketched a cabin in her diary, saying Kyle mentioned a creepy place near water where his record store friends partied. Dubois flips through the diary, finding a pencil drawing of a cabin with a crooked chimney, eerily like the one on Frankie's map. Was Kyle lured there before the concert? Dubois organizes a search of the new cabin, a sagging shack swallowed by pines. The air inside is stale, heavy with mildew. She finds a concrete basement, its walls scratched like the first cabins, with a faint SC carved in a corner. A forensic sweep uncovers a rusted hair clip, like one Sarah wore, and a torn concert flyer, dated July 19th, 1980. Linda confirms the clip's hers, her hope a fragile thread. The scratches suggest Sarah was held here, but the flyer's presence chills Dubois. Was it left as a clue or a taunt? A new witness steps forward, shaken by the 1991 news. Carla Reed, a 1980 Coliseum vendor, contacts Dubois. I saw a girl. In the lot, Carla says, voice trembling. Brown hair, denim vest, arguing with a scarred guy. Maybe that Frankie guy. Carla saw the girl push toward a white pickup, not Vince's, but similar, with a red stripe. Dubois checks impound records, finding a 1981 tow of a white pickup with a red stripe, registered to Frankie Torres. Was Frankie working with Vince, splitting the job? Dubois revisits Vince in Portland, his health fading fast. She shows the help napkin and hair clip. Sarah's back in Vancouver, Vince. she says, watching his eyes. Frankie's involved. Vince's cough racks him, but his smirk returns. Frankie's a nobody, he rasps. Russo called the shots. Dubois presses. What happened? At the second cabin? Vince's eyes widen, then narrow. Never been there, he lies, but his fingers trace the snake tattoo. She leaves, sensing he's protecting someone. Frankie or Russo himself. The Chilliwack gas station sighting, where Starr used a 1980 police ticket stub, gains traction. Ed Murray, the clerk, recalls the man with her had a scar, like Frankie's. Dubois wonders, was Sarah with Frankie in 1991, under duress, or was Starr another victim? She re-interviews Tony Vega, the stagehand. Tony, now a wreck, admits seeing Frankie at the Coliseum garage in 1980, arguing with Vince. Frankie said, "The boy knows too much," Tony whispers. Vince nodded, like they had a plan. Tony saw a white pickup with a red stripe nearby, loaded with crates, or something heavier. The Polaroid from the Inlet bag, showing a tied-up girl, haunts Dubois. Forensics find a partial fingerprint, too smudged for 1991 tech, but the concrete background matches the new cabin's basement. She suspects Sarah was photographed there, a trophy or proof for Russo's clients. A 1981 police report surfaces about a break-in at the second cabin, with stolen items, including a box of Polaroids. The responding officer noted a white pickup with a red stripe fleeing the scene. Frankie's truck again. Dubois' theory sharpens. Kyle's $200 debt to Russo drew him into a deal Vince and Frankie witnessed. Sarah, caught in the crossfire, was abducted with Kyle, held first at Russo's cabin, then the second cabin, and, later, the warehouse. The Save Us note and help napkin suggests Sarah survived longer, possibly escaping. But Frankie's presence at the Rusty Anchor hints she's still trapped in Russo's web. Kyle's fate remains darker. His keychain, a possible grave marker. Linda visits the new cabin standing in the basement, the hair clip cold in her palm. She's fighting, she whispers, hope and grief entwined. Greg, holed up in his workshop, avoids the truth. Kyle's guitar a silent accusation. Dubois feels their pain, a clock ticking louder each day. She plans to raid Frankie's trailer, suspecting he's holding more Polaroids, or Sarah herself. The fishing boat's silhouette, fading into the Burrard Inlet's fog, haunts Detective Marie Dubois like a half-remembered dream. It's 1991, and the Pacific Coliseum case, Sarah Coleman and Kyle Harper's 1980 disappearance after a police concert, has become a maze of whispers and shadows. The clues pile up like driftwood. Sarah's necklace with the Save Us note, her pawned Polaroid camera, Kyle's police keychain, the padlock, the earring, the locket engraved with SC, and the Polaroid of a tied-up girl. Vince Malone's confession that he locked the teens in a warehouse for Joey Russo's trafficking ring, Frankie Torres's looming presence, and now Joe Klein's sighting of a woman with Sarah's scarf boarding a boat with a scarred man, possibly. Frankie, whispering, "Take me to Sarah," tighten the mystery's grip. Is Sarah alive, hidden on that boat, or is another woman chasing her ghost? The Inlet's mist swirls, obscuring the truth. Dubois stands at the Inlet's edge, where Joe Klein, a grizzled homeless man, pointed to the boat's path. Joe's story, shaky but earnest, lingers. The woman, mid-20s, with Sarah's blue scarf and Polaroid camera, looked desperate, her voice a plea. "Take me to Sarah." The scarred man, likely Frankie Torres, hurried her aboard, the boat vanishing into the fog. Dubois scans the horizon, her breath visible in the November chill. The locket's sale at Sal Perez's pawn shop, where a woman whispered, "He's close, feels tied to this boat." Was it Sarah or someone else trapped in Russo's web? She raids Frankie's trailer, a rusted shell in a Vancouver trailer park. The warrant gets her inside, where the air reeks of stale beer and secrets. She finds a nautical chart marked with a route to a remote island in the Inlet, a place locals call Ghost Rock. rumored to be a smuggler's hideout in the 80s. Tucked in a drawer, Dubois uncovers a faded Polaroid of a fishing boat, its hull marked Starlight, with a man resembling Frankie at the helm. A woman's scarf, blue with white stars, is knotted to the rail. Dubois' heart races. Sarah's scarf or a cruel mimicry. No sign of Frankie, but his map and photo scream he's fled to Ghost Rock. Dubois organizes a Coast Guard search for the Starlight, but the Inlet's fog and tides slow progress. She interviews Sal Perez again, the pawnshop owner who bought the SC locket. Sal, chain-smoking, recalls the seller's fear. She looked like your sketch, he says, exhaling. Brown curls, green eyes, kept glancing outside. Said, he's close, like someone was hunting her. Sal notes she paid with a crumpled $5 bill wrapped around a 1980 police ticket stub, like the one from the Rusty Anchor. Dubois examines the stub, its oil smudge tying it to the warehouse. Is Sarah leaving a trail, or is someone else carrying her relics? Linda Coleman and Greg Harper hear about the boat sighting and locket. Linda, clutching Sarah's earring, believes, Sarah's alive. She's calling to us, she says, tears falling. Greg, his face a mask of pain, doubts it. It's a con, he mutters, sanding a table in his workshop. Linda shares a new detail. Sarah loved boats, sketching them in her diary, dreaming of sailing away. Dubois rechecks the diary, finding a drawing of a fishing boat with a star on its hull, eerily like the Starlight. Did Sarah end up on that boat by force, or was it her escape? Dubois digs into Ghost Rock's history. A 1980s Coast Guard report links it to Rousseau's smuggling, drugs, cars, and possibly people. A retired officer, Tom Brady, meets Dubois at a diner. Rousseau's crew used Ghost Rock, Tom says, sipping coffee. Small cabin there, hidden in the trees. Saw boats like the Starlight docking at night. Tom recalls a 1981 raid finding only empty crates, but he heard a woman's cry from the woods, dismissed as a gull. Dubois' gut twists. Was it Sarah, trapped on that island? A new witness emerges. Ellie Dunn, a 1980 Coliseum janitor, now in a nursing home. Ellie, frail but sharp, saw Frankie Torres in the concert lot, arguing with a teen boy, maybe Kyle, near a white pickup with a red stripe. The boy said, "I didn't see nothing," Ellie recalls. Frankie grabbed him, said, "You saw enough." Ellie saw a girl, possibly Sarah, nearby, looking scared. Dubois cross-checks. Frankie's 1981 impounded pickup had a red stripe, tying him to Carla Reed's sighting in Part 7. Was Frankie Rousseau's enforcer, silencing witnesses? Dubois revisits Vince Malone in Portland, his health crumbling. She shows the Starlight Polaroid and locket. "What's on Ghost Rock, Vince?" she asks, watching his eyes. Vince's cough racks him, but his smirk fades. "Nothing but rocks," he rasps, but his fingers trace the snake tattoo. "Ask Frankie," Dubois presses. "Sarah's on that boat, isn't she?" Vince's eyes flicker, then shut. "You're too late," he mutters, a chilling hint. Dubois leaves, fearing Vince knows the island's secret. The Chilliwack gas station sighting, where Starr was with a scarred man, gains clarity. Ed Murray, the clerk, recalls the man's boat keychain, engraved with Starlight. Dubois connects it to the Polaroid's boat. Was Starr Sarah, or another woman under Frankie's control? She re-interviews Tony Vega, the stagehand. Tony, trembling, admits seeing Frankie and Vince at the warehouse in 1980, loading a crate onto a boat. "Heard a thud inside," Tony whispers. Vince said, "She's quiet now." Tony fled, haunted by the sound. The second cabin from Part 7, with its SC scratches and hair clip, ties to Ghost Rock. Dubois suspects it was a way station before the island. A 1981 police report about a boat theft near the Inlet mentions the Starlight, linked to Rousseau's crew. The thief, never caught, left a blue scarf at the dock. Sarah's or a decoy? Dubois' theory evolves. Kyle's debt to Rousseau pulled him. into a deal Frankie and Vince witnessed. Sarah, caught nearby, was abducted with Kyle, held at the first cabin, then the second, and possibly taken to Ghost Rock for Russo's trafficking clients. The Save Us note, locket, and boat sightings suggest Sarah survived longer, perhaps escaping, but Frankie's role hints she's still ensnared. Kyle's keychain and silence point to a grimmer fate. Linda visits the Inlet, staring at the fog, the hair clip cold in her palm. "She's out there," she whispers, hope flickering. Greg, avoiding Kyle's guitar in his workshop, drowns in guilt. Dubois feels their pain, a fire driving her. She joins the Coast Guard search, targeting Ghost Rock, praying for answers. The blood-smeared cabin of the Starlight, abandoned on Ghost Rock's rocky shore, is a silent scream in Detective Marie Dubois' mind. It's 1991, and the Pacific Coliseum case, Sarah Coleman and Kyle Harper's 1980 disappearance after a police concert, has drawn her to this fog-shrouded island, a smuggler's haunt tied to Joey Russo's trafficking ring. The clues: Sarah's necklace with the Save Us note, her pawned Polaroid camera, Kyle's police keychain, the padlock, earring, locket, and Polaroids of a tied-up girl point to a nightmare that spans a decade. Vince Malone's confession, Frankie Torres's sinister presence, and the Starlight's relics, a blue scarf with white stars and a shattered camera, leave Dubois teetering on the edge. Is Sarah dead, her blood staining the boat, or did she leave a desperate clue before vanishing again? The Burrard Inlet's mist wraps Ghost Rock like a shroud, daring her to uncover its secrets. Dubois steps onto Ghost Rock, the Coast Guard's boat bobbing behind her in the choppy waves. The island is a jagged scar of rock and pine, its air heavy with salt and decay. The Starlight's cabin yields grim finds, blood splattered on the walls, too fresh for 1980 but too degraded for 1991 DNA tests to identify. The scarf, tangled in the helm, is Sarah's. Linda Coleman confirmed its pattern. The Polaroid camera, its lens cracked, has SC scratched on its casing, tying it to Sarah's pawned one. Dubois' heart sinks. Did Sarah fight here? Or is this a staged grave? A torn napkin under the bunk reads, "No more running," in shaky ink, with a motor oil smudge like the Save Us note. Her pulse races. Is this Sarah's final stand? The island's cabin, hidden in the trees, is Russo's old safe house, per Tom Brady's tip. Dubois approaches, its sagging roof and boarded windows eerie in the fog. Inside, the air is stale, thick with mildew. She finds a concrete cellar, its walls scratched like the Inlet cabins, with SC carved deeply in a corner. A rusted chain, bolted to the floor, chills her. Sarah was held here, a prisoner. Forensics uncover a brown hair strand, possibly Sarah's, and a faded police concert flyer, dated July 19, 1980, tucked in a crack. A hidden compartment in the cellar floor yields a leather journal, its pages brittle but legible with entries in Sarah's cursive. Dubois' hands tremble as she reads. The journal starts in 1980, detailing Sarah's terror after the concert. "Kyle saw something bad," she wrote. "A deal in the lot. Vince and a scarred guy grabbed us." Sarah describes the first cabin, then this island, where Russo's men held her. "Kyle fought," she wrote, "but they took him away. I heard a scream by the water." Her later entries, dated up to 1985, reveal she was kept alive, moved between hideouts, her spirit breaking. "I scratched my name to be remembered," she wrote. The final entry, undated, reads, "I'm escaping tonight. If I fail, find this." Dubois' throat tightens. Sarah planned a breakout, but did she succeed? Linda Coleman, briefed on the journal, weeps at its words. "She never gave up," she says, clutching Sarah's earring. Greg Harper, his face ashen, reads Kyle's fate in silence. "He's gone," he mutters, turning away. Linda shares a memory. Sarah once hid notes in her camera case, a habit from childhood. Dubois re-examines the shattered camera, finding a folded paper inside its film slot. It's a map of Ghost Rock drawn in ballpoint, marking a cave near the shore. Sarah's note on it reads, "Truth is here." Dubois' heart pounds. Another clue or a trap? She searches the cave, a damp hollow carved by tides. Inside, she finds a rusted tin box buried in the sand, containing a roll of undeveloped Polaroid film and a silver bracelet engraved with SC. Linda confirms it's Sarah's, a gift from her 16th birthday. The film, processed by forensics, reveals blurry shots, a girl tied up in the island cabin, her face like Sarah's, Frankie Torres's scarred face glaring at the camera, and a boat, possibly the Starlight at night. One photo shows Kyle, bruised on the island's shore, his eyes defiant. Dubois' stomach churns. Proof Sarah and Kyle were here, but Kyle's image is a dagger to Greg's fading hope. Dubois re-interviews Frankie Torres, now detained after a tip placed him near the Inlet. In a Vancouver interrogation room, she shows the Polaroids and journal. "What happened on Ghost Rock, Frankie?" she demands. His scar twitches, his eyes cold. "Nothing to tell," he growls, but his hands shake. "Sarah escaped, didn't she?" Dubois presses, slamming the bracelet on the table. "You chased her to the Starlight." Frankie flinches, then smirks. "Talk to Vince," he says, leaning back. Dubois senses he's hiding a final piece, where Sarah went after the boat. Vince Malone, nearing death in Portland, offers little. Dubois shows the journal and cave Polaroids. "Sarah wrote about you," she says, watching his eyes. Vince's cough chokes him, his smirk gone. "She was trouble," he rasps. "Always fighting." Dubois presses. "Did she make it off? Ghost Rock?" Vince's eyes glaze, then he mutters, "Ask the boatman." He slips into a coma hours later, taking his secrets. Dubois' gut twists. Who's the boatman? The Chilliwack sighting, where Star was with a scarred man, ties to Frankie, but the boat keychains Starlight engraving points to Ghost Rock. Dubois wonders, was Star Sarah or another victim? She re-interviews Ed Murray, the gas station clerk. Ed recalls Star whispering, "The island's cursed," before the scarred man pulled her away. Dubois connects it to Sarah's journal, fearing Ghost Rock was her prison until 1991. 1980 teens vanished. After concert, 11 years later, venue clue shocks all. A new lead surfaces. A 1991 Coast Guard log mentions a distress call from Ghost Rock, a woman's voice saying, "He's coming," before static. The call was dismissed as a prank, but Dubois suspects Sarah, fleeing Frankie on the Starlight. She interviews a retired boatman, Hank Voss, who fished near Ghost Rock in '91. Hank saw a woman with a scarf on a boat, waving frantically, before a man dragged her below deck. "Thought it was a fight," Hank says, guilt in his eyes. "Should have helped." Dubois' theory crystallizes. Kyle's debt to Russo drew him into a deal Vince and Frankie witnessed. Sarah nearby was abducted with Kyle, held at the Inlet cabins, then Ghost Rock for Russo's trafficking. Sarah's journal and Polaroids suggest she survived years, escaping in 1991, but Frankie's pursuit led to the Starlight's bloody cabin. Kyle's photo hints he died on the island, her last scream of him. The "no more running" note and cave map show Sarah's fight to expose the truth. Linda visits the Inlet, clutching the bracelet, Sarah's eyes in her dreams. "She's still out there," she whispers. Greg doubts, his workshop a tomb. Dubois feels their pain, a wound driving her. She plans to scour Ghost Rock again, chasing Sarah's cave trail. The Jane Doe's words, "Ghost Rock took her," echo like a fading cry in Detective Marie Dubois' mind, a final thread in the unraveling Pacific Coliseum case. It's 1991, and the disappearance of Sarah Coleman and Kyle Harper after a 1980 police concert has haunted Vancouver for over a decade. Its clues a trail of pain. Sarah's necklace with the "Save Us" note, her pawned Polaroid camera, Kyle's police. Keychain, the padlock, earring, locket, Polaroids, and her journal from Ghost Rock. Vince Malone's confession that he locked the teens in a warehouse for Joey Russo's trafficking ring, Frankie Torres's menacing shadow, and the blood-stained Starlight boat have led Dubois to this moment. The Jane Doe with Sarah's scarf and camera vanished from a hospital, leaving Dubois to wonder, was this Sarah, broken but alive, or another victim of Russo's empire? The Burrard Inlet's waves whisper closure, but the truth demands a final plunge. Dubois scours Vancouver General Hospital's 1991 records, chasing the Jane Doe. A nurse, Ellen Carter, remembers her vividly. She came in late, August 91. Ellen says, her voice soft. Brown curls, green eyes, thin as a shadow, had a blue scarf with stars, blood on it, and a busted camera. Kept saying, Ghost Rock took her. The Jane Doe refused to give a name, her hands trembling, and fled before police arrived. Ellen kept a napkin she left behind, scrawled with, Find me, in shaky ink, its motor oil smudge mirroring the Save Us note. Dubois' heart races. Sarah's handwriting, or a cruel mimicry. Ellen adds, she had a scar on her wrist, like a chain burn. Dubois recalls the rusted chain in Ghost Rock's cabin, her hope flickering. She tracks the Jane Doe's path, finding a 1991 police report of a woman matching her description near the inlet, stealing food from a diner. The officer noted her muttering, he's still out there, before she vanished into the night. Dubois visits the diner, the Seabreeze, where a waiter, Mike Tan, recalls her. Looked like your sketch, Mike says, pouring coffee. Scarf, as scared eyes paid with a weird ticket. He hands Dubois a crumpled police ticket stub, dated July 19, 1980, torn like the others, with an oil scent. Dubois' hands shake. Sarah's trail, alive in Vancouver. Dubois re-interviews Frankie Torres, detained in Vancouver. In the interrogation room, she slams the Find Me napkin, Ghost Rock journal, and Polaroids on the table. Sarah made it off Ghost Rock, didn't she? She demands. Frankie's scar twitches, his eyes darting. You're dreaming, he growls, but his hands clench. You chased her to the Starlight, Dubois presses. Who's the boatman Vince mentioned? Frankie's smirk fades, his voice low. Russo's dead. Let it go. Dubois leans. And Sarah's alive, and you know where. Frankie shoves the table, shouting, She's nothing! His outburst betrays fear. Sarah's escape haunts him. Dubois leaves, certain Frankie's hiding her final hiding place. She digs into the boatman clue, finding a 1980s Russo associate, Leo Pratt, a fisherman who ran boats for the trafficking ring. Leo, now 65, lives in a shack near the Inlet. Dubois confronts him, showing the Starlight Polaroid. You ferried Sarah, didn't you? She asks. Leo's weathered face pales, his hands trembling. I just drove boats, he mutters, avoiding her eyes. Frankie said move crates, not people. Dubois presses. What happened in 91 on Ghost Rock? Leo cracks, his voice a whisper. Saw a girl, skinny, scarf, running to the Starlight. Frankie was after her. I didn't ask questions. Leo adds, she begged me to take her to Vancouver, said she had to find someone. Dubois' pulse surges. Sarah reached the mainland. But where next? Linda Coleman and Greg Harper hear about the Jane Doe. Linda, clutching Sarah's bracelet, believes it's her. She's fighting, she says, tears streaming. Greg, broken by Kyle's Ghost Rock photo, shakes his head. It's over, he mutters, his workshop a grave for hope. Linda shares a memory. Sarah loved Vancouver's old library, hiding there to read. Dubois searches the library's 1991 logs, finding a visitor record for a Sally Cole, signed in August, the same month as the Jane Doe. The librarian, Ruth Lee, recalls a young woman with a scarf, reading true crime books, her hands scarred. She left a note in a book, Ruth says, handing Dubois a slip. I'm sorry, Mom. Linda confirms Sarah's handwriting, her hope reignited. Dubois revisits Ghost Rock, chasing Sarah's cave map. A final search uncovers a buried tin can near the cave, containing a single Polaroid. Sarah, older, her face gaunt, holding a sign reading, "I lived." The back reads, "For Kyle." Dubois' throat tightens. Sarah survived, honoring Kyle's memory. Forensics date the photo to 1991, confirming her escape. But the blood on the Starlight raises a grim question. Did Frankie catch her? She investigates the Chilliwack sighting, where Star was with a scarred man. Ed Murray, the clerk, adds, "Star said, 'I'm going home,' before the guy pulled her away." Dubois connects it to the Jane Doe's Vancouver trail. Sarah was heading to Linda. A new lead emerges, a 1991 Salvation Army shelter report of a woman with Sarah's scarf, calling herself Sally, staying one night. The worker, Jane Kim, recalls her fear. "She said someone was following her," Jane says. "Left a locket with SC engraved." Dubois retrieves it. Linda's gift to Sarah, sold at Sal Perez's pawn shop, then reclaimed. Dubois' theory solidifies. Kyle's $200 debt to Russo drew him into a deal Vince and Frankie witnessed. Sarah, nearby, was abducted, held at the Inlet cabins, then Ghost Rock for trafficking. Sarah's journal shows she survived until 1991, escaping on the Starlight with Leo's help. Frankie pursued her, leading to the boat's blood, but Sarah reached Vancouver, leaving clues, napkins, tickets, lockets, as cries for help. Kyle died on Ghost Rock, his scream in Sarah's journal. The Jane Doe was Sarah, but Frankie's shadow drove her underground. Dubois confronts Frankie one last time, armed with the "I lived" Polaroid. "Sarah beat you," she says. Frankie's face crumples, his voice a snarl. "She got lucky," he admits. "Found her on the boat, but she fought, slipped away in Vancouver." He refuses to say more, but his defeat is clear. Sarah outran him. Dubois charges him with kidnapping and murder, though Kyle's body remains lost. In a final twist, Dubois receives an anonymous letter in 1992, postmarked from Seattle. Inside is a Polaroid of a woman with brown curls, older but alive, standing by a lighthouse. A note reads, "I'm free for Kyle." The handwriting matches Sarah's journal. Dubois visits Linda, showing the photo. Linda weeps, recognizing Sarah's eyes. "She's safe," she whispers, clutching the locket. Greg, seeing Kyle's guitar, nods, a tear falling. They find peace, knowing Sarah survived, though she'll never return, scarred by her decade in hell. Dubois closes the case. The Inlet's waves a somber farewell. Sarah's clues, notes, Polaroids, scratches, were her fight to be remembered. Kyle's defiance lives in her survival. Russo's empire falls, Frankie and Vince its last relics. The Pacific Coliseum stands silent, its 1980 echoes fading. But Sarah's light endures. Thanks for sticking with the story until the end. If you enjoyed it, give this a like and share if you haven't already, and subscribe for more.